Hello, my friends. Welcome to my corner. Happy New Year. I hope you started this year very well, and I wish you the best for 2022. Today, I have a pile of books to share with you. And before we begin, I want to say this. I did not go out and buy all these books at once. Okay, I do not have the money to do that, and perhaps most importantly, I don't have the time to read these many books in one sitting or in 1 week or even in 1 month. It'll take me a long time to get through these, and I'm looking forward to that. But I did want to say that before we start. So every year for Christmas, I have a tradition. I get one book, one movie, and one record, one CD actually, because I still use CDs, believe it or not. I'm one of those people. For the book, I kind of cheated this year because I got two of them. It's one work still, so that's how I got around that. I finally got the Penguin edition of Ludovico Ariosto's Orlando Furioso. I wanted this translation. It's the one by Barbara Reynolds. And I think that was published in the 1970s. This is the other volume right here. So it has in two volumes the complete Orlando Furioso. You can go online and get previous translations of this work for free, pretty much. You can get, for instance, the William Stewart Rose. That's one of my favorite translations. It was published in 8 volumes in 1821 to 1830 something. It's the 1820s, 1830s in any case. And that translation reads a little bit archaic, of course, because it's been a while since it was published. At the same time, you have to ask yourself, so how archaic, how modern would the original Ariosto sound to a reader of Italian? That's another issue, right? But I did want to get the Penguin editions because of the translation, because I really like the way it sounds, and also because of all the notes and all the introductions and all the scholarly work behind them. So I was really happy that apparently they're in print again, because for a long time I was not able to get these editions. Then, just to share this with you, this was the record that I got. Do you know what this is? If you're Argentinian, you do. This is Charly Garcia. It's his first solo album. And it's a classic. It's from 1982. If you want to check out Argentinian music, Argentinian rock, Charly Garcia is the mad genius of Argentine rock. So, it's a good place to start. And the movie that I got was this one, which I had seen before, Asako 1 and 2. It's by Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who was the director of Happy Hour. That was probably his most famous film. Asako 1 and 2, it did not receive the kind of, attention that I thought it would get. I think it's a fantastic movie. The idea behind it is that a girl meets a guy and she falls in love with him. He passes away, and soon after that she meets a guy who looks exactly like this guy that she had fallen in love with, but his personality is completely different. So we have a movie that deals with this concept of personality. What makes us the person that we are? So if you want to check out a good, artistic movie on that topic, this is a good one to look at. It's based on a novel by Tomoka Shibasaki, and I'm going to share with you a book by her. Asako 1 and 2 is not available in English, but there's another one. Actually, why don't I show you that one, since I brought it up? It's this one, Spring Garden. It's a novella. I think you could call it a novella at 150 pages. So a longish novella. It won the Akutagawa Prize, and it's just a really, really good story. So I had read it also. I just wanted to have a copy so that I could reread it, because I really feel like exploring that again. Many of these books I got at Half Price Books, so I saved a lot of money. I like to brag about the money I don't spend, that's kind of the way it is with me. And this one, Le Petit Nicolas, has drawings by Sampé. I like his work. I have seen it before in Patrick Modiano's Catherine Certitude. He did the drawings for that one. Also, there's a novel by Patrick Suskind, I think, Mr. Summers' Story, I want to say. I hope I got the title right for that one. It also has drawings by Sampé, and I really like the way he brings these characters to life. A couple of months ago, I went on a retreat, on a silent retreat, and they were selling this edition of The Imitation of Christ. So I got it. It's from Dover Publishers, so it was quite affordable. I think you can see the price here. It was $4, and it's a translation from the 1940s. So maybe not exactly the most modern translation, but you know how it is. It's these books you don't really read in order to find out things that you don't know. I read them more to be inspired and to remind myself of those things that I technically know, but that I keep forgetting when I'm caught up in the things of the world and all that stuff. Also by Dover, this one was a little bit more expensive because it's a translation that is exclusive to them, I believe, is 10 Nights Dreaming by Natsume Soseki, and it also has a short story or a meditation titled The Cat's Grave. The Cat's Grave is maybe kind of a genesis for his longer novel, I Am a Cat, which was his first famous work. But this is basically what the title is saying. It's 10 Nights Dreaming. He shares with you 10 dreams that he has had. And I think that's a wonderful idea, to have a diary of dreams. I have tried to do this. I have a notebook that I keep, and I have tried to write down my dreams, but honestly, I'm just a lousy dreamer. I'm a great daydreamer, that's for sure, but when it comes to actual dreams, I don't really have a lot of them. Or maybe if it's the way most people say, I do have the dreams, but I just don't remember them when I wake up. I have had some wonderful ones, but I don't think I could even write a book of 10 dreams the way Soseki did with the ones that I had. I got a novel in Spanish, El Pentágono, The Pentagon, by Antonio Di Benedetto. I don't know if you have read Antonio Di Benedetto, but he is worth your time. His most famous novel is Sama. There was an Argentine movie a couple of years ago or 3 years ago based on this fantastic historical novel, Sama. He has others. The Silenciary has been published in English recently, or is going to be. I haven't kept up with that. The Suicides is another one. So an author that is sometimes experimental, especially in this novel. This novel is composed of short stories, some of them very short. You only have like 1 page or 2. And when you read the whole thing, you get a novel, if you want to call it that. It's very interesting. Unfortunately, it has not been published in English yet. 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that, it's difficult for me to keep track of time, I shared with you my impressions on my reading of a novel by Claude Simon, which was Histoire. So if you're interested in his work, there's that other video that I did a few months ago. I decided to go ahead and get the Claude Simon books that I did not have. So I got the Georgics, which was one. These are in chronological order for you. So I have the Georgics, The Invitation, that's another one that I was missing. Then I have the Acacia, which is a sort of continuation of Histoire. So that's another one. The Jardin des Plantes, which is another one that I was missing. And his last novel, the very brief, The Trolley. So that's, this one I have read, so I already know what it's about, but I did want to have these novels by Simon. He is a great author, and I really enjoy reading him, so I wanted to, have copies of them so that I could revisit his work. One time I went to Half Price Books and I found one of the Haruki Murakami novels that I was missing, which is probably, one of his most famous ones, Kafka on the Shore. I have read quite a few books by Murakami, and I have enjoyed most of them. I think my favorite so far is The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. I've also read 1Q84, but I think that novel has quite a few loose ends. I like The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle quite a bit more. My first one, just to give you a little bit of context, was After Dark. So I read After Dark, Norwegian Wood, South of the Border, West of the Sun. What's the other one? I'm missing one here. Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World. So his most famous novels I have read, but Kafka on the Shore, everybody says it's, one of his best novels. So I do need to read that. And that same day I went, there are times when I go to a bookstore and I don't really find anything, believe it or not. And then other times I go and they seem to have everything. It seems like somebody, who had a bookshelf titled all the books that Jorge wants went there and sold their books or something. I found these 2 volumes of Sao Suet Chin, this novel, The Story of the Stone, also known as The Dream of the Red Chamber. And the Penguin edition is in 5 volumes. This is volume 2. I have volume 3 here. They had the two of them. I do have volume 1. I have not read it. I am sorry to say. It's something that I need to do, but you know, we're talking about 5 volumes, so a very long work. I need to dedicate an entire summer to this book. I don't want to read it during the year. I really want to focus on it. And I'm sorry to say it's probably not going to be this summer, because I'm planning to finally read The 1001 Nights this summer. So that will take up quite a bit of my time. I don't know if you have seen my video on Berlin Alexanderplatz, but I had been wanting to get a copy of this for a very long time by the same author, Alfred Döblin. This is Mountains, Oceans, Giants. I remember many years ago when I was doing a little bit of research on Döblin, reading about this novel, and I found the premise to be so fantastic, so wonderful, that I was like, I need to read that, right? This is about, you know, nature, the forces of nature, basically, coming awake. And I thought it was a fantastic idea, but unfortunately at that point there were no versions of this novel in Spanish or in English. So finally they have translated it, and here it is. So that's another book that I look forward to reading. I had this was here. I was feeling, this is a record, I was feeling nostalgic for 90s alternative, so I got this one by Bush that I found also at Half Price Books, and this movie, Giant, the last movie with James Dean. It's a classic. It's one of the movies that I have seen that I have enjoyed a lot. And one movie club that I belong to is thinking of talking about this film, discussing it soon. So I thought, you know, it's a good idea for me to have a copy of it. Henry Green, I love this author. He is not as talked about as I thought he would be after his work was published again recently. And they say that the novels included in this edition, there's a newer one by Penguin, okay? Loving, Living, and Party Going are among his best works. I have read Living, and I can tell you, if you want to start reading, if you want to read Henry Green, by all means start with that one. Living is probably the best place to start. I have read maybe 5 or 6 of his books, and that is still my favorite. That one and Concluding. Concluding, I think, is the closest that Henry Green got to writing a mystery. So if you like that kind of stuff, missing persons type of thing, then Concluding is another good work to check out. I enjoyed Blindness, Caught, Back was another one that I liked. His autobiography, Pack My Bag, for some reason it just did not work for me. That's completely subjective, of course, but just letting you know my experience with that. I also found at Half Price Books that same day this short novel by Peter Handke, A Sorrow Beyond Dreams. This is the one about his mother's death, his meditations on his mother passing away. I have not read a lot by Peter Handke, but I am a fan of The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Kick. Not only the novel, but also the Wim Wenders film, which is fantastic, I think. It's very, very well done. As you know, Peter Handke also wrote the script for Wings of Desire by Wim Wenders also. So, you know, there's a connection there. I have read a couple more by Handke. One of them was A Moment of True Feeling. I remember that one. The other one was the Left-Handed Woman. I am not sure of the title, so don't take my word on that. I'll look it up and make sure that I'm saying something that makes sense here. I also made a video recently on Abdulrazak Gurna, on his being awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. And I found another one. One day I went to a bookstore and I found Admiring Silence, which is another novel about a young man who emigrates from Zanzibar to London. So I thought it would be nice to compare this one to Gravel Heart, which is the Gurna novel that I did the video on, if you're interested in that. My father has in his library these editions. These are French books on literature. He had the ones for the 20th century, the 17th century, and I found this one on the Middle Ages. It's the collection by Lagarde and Michard. It's great because it has excerpts from works from the time that they discuss, but also, you know, a lot of history, a lot of analysis. So, and of course it's in French, and I can read French. I don't really speak the language, but I thought this would give me, more insight into medieval French literature. So that's a nice volume that I was able to find. And then this huge book, The Tale of the Heike, which is, they describe it as, it's even back here, as the Japanese Iliad. So it's an epic poem, and you can see it's very long. It's in verse form. And I am a huge fan of Japanese literature and of epic literature too. So I thought that's a nice combination, and it's apparently a work that I really need to read, along with The Tale of the Genji and all of those classics of Japanese literature. At a local library, I found this copy of Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. It was $1. I was like, I can go online and get that book for free, of course, but I always, I still like to have the physical copy. There's nothing like, having a book in your hands, and it was $1. Actually, it wasn't $1, it was 50 cents. I was like, I just need to get this. And the last thing that I have here is Foucault's The Order of Things. This is the English translation, but it's the English title of Les mots et les choses, just in case, just to be clear about that. I have been wanting to read this for a long time. I read Foucault for a class on critical theory many years ago. We read his thoughts on the concept of the author. So The Order of Things is probably his most famous work, after Discipline and Punish and the history of sexuality and all those things. So I was like, this is a good place for me to start, since I have never actually read one book, one book length essay by Foucault. So those are the books, couple of movies, couple of albums that I have, and just wanted to share with you some reading ideas. Hopefully you found something here that inspired you to explore one of these authors. If you have any questions, any suggestions for me for further reading, I always enjoy that. If you have read any of these books and you would like to share your ideas, of course, that is always welcome. And I always enjoy reading what other people think about these books, even before I read them myself. Thank you so much for stopping by, and have a wonderful day.